Well, I got to tell you something. I thought it was interesting when in their long list of crimes for the common man, even believing in pre-Adam showed up on somebody's list of terrorist activities. Don't you find that interesting?
That's very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, here's the thing. The truth will always be persecuted by the lying devils that seem to inhabit academia, the government, politics, but even the Pentagon refers to the gods of the Samaritans, and I've said on open broadcast, Tom, the last 10 years, you guys may, wait with bated breath for the gods of the Samaritans, little g, but when you deal with the God of heaven, and the God of heaven who is literally the Lord of hosts and the general of the hosts of heaven, I think they've got a battle in mind that they're not prepared to win, yet they will try. My general friend told me this. He said, Steve, he said, all our weapons technology, ancient and contemporary, a composite of ancient combined with what we know now, is all designed for one purpose, and that is Satan and his minions and his willing dupes and the Illuminati and the industrials all believe literally, Tom, that they can make war on God. And that's what Armageddon or Harmageddo is, the Battle of Armageddon. It's not just, everybody who's got an attitude problem about failing currency. That's literally when the kings of the earth, in total rebellion against the King of Glory, they go 1-to-1, and God says, take your best shot. And in one day, the day of the Lord's wrath, they don't stand. But until that time, the people of God have got to wake up and have got to realize that the deception will be so great that unless they are actively and with all their hearts seeking God, His direction, His guidance, His discernment, there is so little lack of discernment, or there is so little discernment in that which professes to call itself the church, that, they can they could put the devil in a tutu, and everybody would think that, this is some new rock star and coming on the scene, and everybody would worship him. I'm not kidding. I know that's a little bit silly, but look, we're seeing stuff even more brazen now. We have all of Hollywood, pretty much, who are of the idea that, if they want to be fame and rich and have all the good times they can have, then they've got to sell their soul to the devil. You can go on YouTube and see probably 10 of the most famous, richest rock stars in the world openly talking about worshiping Lucifer, worshiping Satan. Lady Gaga openly exposes herself, and I don't mean that just in the poor choice of wardrobe, but she just openly exposed herself to some of the darkest, most profane manifestations of psychic and occultic power that's ever been seen in rock and roll, and the world goes after her and gives her whole adoration, and she's talking about, basically doing things with dead bodies and everything else. I don't want to go there, but this is the appetite. These are the doctrines of demons. This is the deception. This is the great deception, and unless people understand that it is the invisible realm. By the way, everything under Giza, the Giza Plateau, it's not what's above the ground, it's what's underground. I actually talked to the man and a military guy who oversaw the giant sarcophaguses that were starting to float out when one of the chambers ruptured due to an earthquake or something. Something flooded the Hall of Giants. You talk about the Hall of Records. And he said, Steve, imagine yourself going in to giant sarcophaguses that are 18 and 24 feet tall. I get an email from a guy in India who's a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force, and he shows me the tomb of somebody in India that's 24 feet long. Well, people just can't imagine. Some people that, quote, supposedly go on coast to coast and are Christians, they claim that, Goliath was only 7 feet tall. Good luck. The bottom line is a weaver's beam was taller than 6 feet, and the thing that's interesting to me is that all the records, Og was 18 feet, but the Native American legends, let me just give a little tidbit that's blowing my mind. They are literally, I've never seen, and I'm going to be publishing it soon, so many eyewitness accounts, multi-tribal accounts, multi-geographic position accounts of entities that are 60 and 40, 60, 80 feet tall. And, it's amazing because we have the legend of Paul Bunyan, and that's nothing compared to what the Native Americans know. And so I think it's fascinating that we're talking about the end of the galaxy. We're talking about exoplanets. We're talking about exobiotic entities. We're talking about all this stuff, and yet we are surrounded by signs. We're surrounded by evidence. We're surrounded even by rock formations, geoglyphs, petroglyphs, and everything, and all telling the same story. And by the way, the Native Americans understood how to work the stargates. Remember the little Kokopelli, and I may not be pronouncing his name right, but the little figure, kind of the desert dancer. Some people call him a devil dancer with a little flute. Right. That flute is what controls the gates. I don't know the pitch. I don't know what it takes, but that syncs and links up what I've been told by the people who basically control the stuff that goes bump in the night. Interesting.
If I can interject a question here to either Steve or Tom, I've got this is interesting on a couple of levels, and this goes back to what you said earlier. This is from Dwayne, who's listening actually live. We're being simulcast out of a station of the Pacific Northwest, KWAX. Either one. To put this in perspective, are you gentlemen saying that there are aliens on Earth today that could be connected to the Illuminati or part of the Illuminati, if not in practicality or in theory, but in practicality, that believe that they're the offspring of alien life and they're waiting on a return of their ancestors? Or no, I'm not sure if that. I truncated that question. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But I guess the bottom line with this question is: Are there people in power in across the world, the Illuminati, the Illuminists, who believe that they are in fact descendants of the alien life forms to which you refer to? So when the aliens come back, or when this alien presence makes itself known, they're going to reclaim their power. They're going to say, well, we're part of this, part of the bloodline of Jesus. We're part of the Messiah, and you should worship us, type thing. Does that make sense to you? I mean, or did I lose you guys?
Well, no,
I don't.
To you. Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to answer it, Tom? I mean, I'll answer it after you answer it, or either one of us.
I thought I heard us going into a commercial. Was why I hesitated. Look. There are, like, if you read Nick Redfern's book, the Final Event, or whatever it's called, he talks about the Collins Elite, and this is a group of individuals that are ex-government personalities that have basically a Christian worldview, that have studied the UFO phenomenon, and they believe that it is demonic in nature and that it is leading towards deception. In fact, I'm supposed to get a sit-down with a member of the Collins Elite, and we're going to be talking about that, too, in our research. But I asked Nick Pope, the former director for the Military of Defense out of Britain, who ran their UFO investigation department for many years, I asked him if he was familiar with the Collins Elite that Nick Redfern talks about, and whether there was anything in the United Kingdom like that, and I'm going to publish what he told me in the book. It's too much for me to cite right here, right now. But he assured me that there is, among the aristocracy in Britain, certainly members who are occultists, and they very much believe that they are descendants from a reptilian race. Now, that sounds just unbelievable, right? We think we're talking here now about David Icke or something, but there are people, they do believe this, they do believe they are of particular bloodlines, and they are very much committed to an occultic worldview regarding UFOs and aliens. And I'm going to tell you something else, and I've never said this on radio before. One of the biggest secrets in the upcoming book, Exo Vaticana, actually has to do with part of my family. It's a secret that I've kept buried my entire adult life. It's remained sealed partly due to a binding agreement and a settlement between members of my family and state and federal investigators. Part of this has to do with a family member who was a nuclear physicist with the uppermost security clearance doing research into nuclear and biological warfare at General Atomics in San Diego, California. And at one point, he was transferred from General Atomics to Los Alamos National Laboratory in northern New Mexico, where he was involved with a top-secret project, the details of which at that time we were oblivious to. Of course, that's the same facility that was founded during World War II as a covert laboratory to coordinate the Manhattan Project, right? The Allied undertaking to develop the first nuclear weapons. But more sinisterly, that site's been connected to alleged secret alien underground facilities beneath the Archuleta Mesa on the New Mexico border near Dulce, to genetic experiments on humans, to UFOs, even to 5 alien bodies, extraterrestrial biological entities that were recovered according to the story in 1947 from Roswell and were purportedly sent to a safe house there at Los Alamos. In any case, it was during that time, while this member of my family was conducting top-secret research for the U.S. government at Los Alamos, that one night after he came home, he got drunk and under the influence of alcohol started talking about the laboratory where he was working, including information in how it was involved with the so-called alien agenda. And he started bragging about stuff that I'm not going to discuss on this show or any other show, and I'm not going to write about it online, but it is it's a whole chapter, first time ever. This has been concealed since the 1960s. And as people are going to learn, what happened following his admissions speak for itself, because he disappeared, never to be heard from again. There's a whole story around that. The story even involves government counselors and, Steve, what can only be thought of as highly placed covens within national agencies that direct so-called alien abductees according to certain protocols. The most explosive of which was actually uncovered when a federal investigator worked with a member of my family concerning a particular state that then connected to numerous other states, and they finally had to settle with this member of my family and other experiencers, as so-called alien abductees are called, in which an agreement was reached for their silence. I personally attended 2 of those meetings in which the investigator and the attorneys for both sides and the federal investigator were in attendance. It was held inside the state building, inside that state, where the agreement was reached. And once people know that story, well, it's been buried since the 60s. They're going to understand why it's been kept under wraps until now. It had to be. And also why I've had an interest in understanding the so-called alien abduction and hybridization scheme. But the bottom line is there is definitely a very, very powerful and organized occult aspect to the whole so-called alien abduction phenomenon, in which you have people who are members of government in high-profile positions, and they definitely believe that they are dealing with an intelligence from a hyperdimensional reality, but that I would call, and Steve would call, and others of our persuasion would call demonic and deceptive entities that are leading these people down a path towards destruction. So that's all I can say about that. I'm not going to talk about it online, and I'm not going to write about it online, but I, for the first time since the 1960s, I have written a chapter about it, and it will be in the Exo Vaticana book, and it's going to be, I think, absolutely shocking to a lot of people.